My name is Bishop Davidson. This is Adam Peevler and Grant Hancock. And we'd like to begin. We're very sorry for your loss, but we're happy you were able to speak to him before he passed on. And now we'd like to look into some of the options that we have, some of the different ways and the routes that we can go. And actually, my colleague Adam is going to start us off here. So,
first, I'd like to talk about the pros and cons of having a wind farm, going into your own business as your father had hoped for. And he was very wise in considering a wind farm, because those are becoming of more and more use in today's world with the green economy. And it does generate very efficient levels of energy that, compared to how much it uses, it is very efficient and a reliable source of energy. And it is very green. There's no pollution with wind farms, which is very smart in what people are wanting and what is best for our environment. And then consumers have taken an interest in wind farms here lately because of the problems with different movies coming out about the environment and the issues that they're having. People have taken more consideration, so they would be interested in taking part of a wind farm or getting energy from a wind farm because they understand the importance that it has on our environment. Some of the cons, starting a new business, obviously it has its levels of risk, that there's always a chance of failing, that no matter how hard we work, it might not work out. So that's always a con to consider. However, with hard work, we could try to promote the best business possible. Another con could be the amount of work it takes starting a new business, that you'll be putting in a lot of hours to get this business up and running, and it won't be easy at first. So that's always a con to consider when starting a new business. And the lands that you have, there are specific lands needed to have a wind farm, that if it's in a valley or if it's very wooded, it'd be more difficult to create a successful wind farm because there's less wind hitting these different wind farm equipment. And so these are just some of the issues about the pros and cons of wind farms. Now, Grant's going to talk about the solar panels.
Another thing you all wanted us to address was the pros and cons of the solar panel company that your friend owns. Some of the pros we came up with is a stable market compared to the wind farm. That was addressed in some of the research that we already had. And then already established clientele. It's one of the hardest things to get when you're starting a new business, is to grow your client base. And since it's already established, you could build off of that. Less risk. It's already established to an extent. Like Adam said, starting your own business, there's always that certain form of risk, and this is kind of depreciating that risk because of the business already being established. The name, advertising a new business is very difficult. So having that name already established is a great pro. And then when you go to some of the cons, less freedom. When you make your own business, start your own business, you have more freedom than when you're joining a partnership, because you have to respect your partner's views. Proximity to the business. In our research, we said Laura was 100 miles away from the business. That's gonna be a factor in her decision that we believe could be a con to her land that she owns. And father's wishes. We all know that's one of the major things we wanted to address, was the wishes of your father. So, and that's kind of subject because it is a green form of energy, but the wind wish was definitely something to consider.
and also another thing we need to address is your land and the options that we have with that, going both ways, whether it be solar or wind. First of all, we would like to evaluate the land and see how it is. Adam addressed it and touched on it, but is it hilly, or is there a lot of forest? Is it flat? Is it available to the wind? Is the wind going to be able to hit it often? And this is also something to keep in mind when considering the solar option, because we want to make sure the sun is able to get to it. Is it cloudy? Is it a downcast area? But really both options, land is good, and then if you do not need the money, we would all suggest that you keep the land because it's just a solid investment all around. Even off to the side, to have land is a smart investment. Now, you can always sell the land if needed, but it's a lot more difficult to keep your hands on the land. But since you already have it, maybe keep it. And in regards to the business, it could help the solar company and it could also help the wind either way. So.
Now talking about next steps with either decision that you make, if the next step for creating the solar panel, going in with your friend, would be expansion. Because with more capital that you are bringing in from your father and the new land provided, if it is usable, it's very likely that expansion would be possible because of the newfound capital. And really, it would be a lot more successful as a business to have more creation of energy. You can expand and make more revenue for both you and the partner. And then the next step that we would take if we were going into the wind business would be research, because going into this new business we need to find out which equipment is both reliable and inexpensive, which equipment would be best for the land provided, and also how to build the equipment most efficiently. Just all this research we would want to use, who would be buying the energy from us. It's all important in deciding where and how we build these things to provide the best economic decisions. And the installation would be important, and implementation finally, for a long-term goal, implementing employees and other ways of continuous energy being provided to your consumers.
One thing you wanted us to address too is alternative course of action besides going into business with both, or going into business by yourself or solely with the solar panel company. We thought the best form would be to go into business. Well, one of three is to attempt to do both, as in go into business by yourself and then go that route. And another would be to invest in friend and invest into an established wind farm, so you're not going to assume or take on as much risk. And then lastly, invest all with your friend and then attempt to diversify after a while with the capital that you have into a wind. So go in solely as solar and then attempt to diversify into the wind market.
That's your time.
Thank you.
You can still ask questions. That's your presentation time. You touched on the fact that the piece of land that I inherited, might just want to keep it. If I'm not going to use it to build a new factory on it, I might just want to keep it. Do you think that the appreciation of the land over a period of, let's say, 20 years would make me more than it would to sell that land at today's price and invest that money in maybe a medium risk mutual fund?
Well, that is something to keep in mind, but generally in the past, land has kept pretty consistent with inflation, this and that. It's kept its price. Currently, land is maybe a little higher. I think in the next 20 years it could also rise a little more, just basing that off of population growth and this and that, more people wanting to get out and get some land. You could divvy it up and sell it then. I think holding on to the land, and we think holding on to the land would simply allow your options to stay open. You could always come back to that land and maybe do something with wind or solar, or you could always come back to that land and sell it. And we know that it is a very safe bet, and that if you are in a comfortable situation right now with your finances, we encourage keeping backed up with that safe bet.
Do you think there's anything that I should be concerned about with getting into business with a friend?
There is some, obviously, concerns with that. Stress on the relationship. There's going to be problems run into with the business, but to keep it professional, I think would be key. That's definitely a factor, a pro or a con, depending on the relationship that needs to be thought about before going into business.
Which you feel would be the most promising, with solar or wind?
We take both into consideration. As far as risk factor, the solar is a safer, more assuring bet, and as far as economic, it could provide more, I think we believe, but the wind, considering the father's wishes and just the possibility of having wind, is also it's an okay it's not maybe necessarily as good economically, but taking in other considerations, it's still definitely on the table.
But overall, keeping that all considered, the research states that by 2020 is when wind will really pick up. And so, you know, our last option that he brought up is maybe investing into the solar with the intent, you know, after becoming a partner, with the intent of diversifying the company and actually expanding beyond solar to wind also, addressing more energy needs.
Is that all the questions you have for us? All right.
Thank you.